thriving. It was big, doing well, and it was wealthy. It was extremely wealthy. The people that were living there tended to have self-pride, and they felt like they were in control of everything that they needed to be in control of. And again, here's another city that loved paganism. They worshiped all the gods, but they, in particular, with their connection to Rome, and this is one of the key things that I found, was as far back as 196 BC, there were shrines to the goddess of Rome, Roma. And in AD 23, Smyrna won the privilege to build the first temple dedicated to the worship of the Emperor Tiberius Caesar. If you ever pay attention to the Olympics and you see where cities are bidding to become a host for the Olympics, and then they have this big celebration about who won the thing, well, Smyrna was in a bidding war with 10 other cities, and they were the ones that got the bid. So they got to build the first temple dedicated to the worship of an emperor. And one of the things that came out of that was the cult of emperor worship. So they had a cult that was embedded right there in Smyrna, and they were really where they propagated this idea of worshiping the emperor. Now, it wasn't until Dalmatia was the Caesar that he made you start actually worshiping in the sense that they would have to take a pinch of incense and burn it at the shrine for the image of the god Caesar. And if you didn't do that, they cast you out of the city. You were banned from doing trade. And sometimes they ship you to these islands like John was. So here is some of the columns that still stand. Now that's a modern building in the background, but those are some of the columns for the Agora area that you can tell the opulence that this area had. This is to one of the shrines of the Princess Diana, the temple there for her. You can see the columns. Now that would be similar to what I was trying to show you from Ephesus, but there's the columns that are still standing and still on that corner of the foundation. This is a picture of those first columns from underneath. So the agora that runs right through there. This is a picture that shows those columns and the agora that runs through there. It was impressive. It really was. And the fact that it's still standing is something. So you've got emperor worship that's heavy in Smyrna. And then you've got wealth, trade, and paganism. So let's read it again, and let's see if anything jumps out to you that might tie into the worship of Caesar. So, and to the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things says the first and the last, who was dead and came to life. I know your works, tribulation, and poverty, but you are rich. And I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear any of these things which you are about to suffer. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison that you may be tested, and you will have tribulation for 10 days. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes shall not be hurt by the second death. So, if you're in Smyrna, having a little history of the background, what do you think this tribulation might involve? Yeah, and so if you're a Christian and you don't want to bow down to worship Caesar, well, you're going to get branded disloyal to the government, and you're not going to be able to trade. So you're going to end up not being able to earn money. If you're a tradesman and you don't have your certificate that says that you threw the pinch of incense and burned it, you don't get work. So you're not going to have basic necessities. You're going to be poor. And so in this passage, he says, I know your poverty. Well, they're broke because they're not bowing down to Caesar. I know your poverty, but he says, but you are rich. And so how are they rich? They're rich in Christ, right? They're going to have eternal glory, where those that are pagans, those who are worshiping the emperor, they just get that benefit of right then and there. So, and he says something to the effect of, let's see, I'm going to go back one screen. He says about the Jews, he says, who say they are Jews, but they're not, but they are a synagogue of Satan. Well, if you're a Jew and you're willing to compromise and you burn your offering to the idol for Caesar, but then you go back and you start trying to do your business, you've compromised. Now that you could still sell and trade, but here Jesus is saying you're a synagogue of Satan. The emperor worship, that's where it started. That was the seat in Rome for worshiping, and it just went viral, so to speak. So when you know that, things like this start to jump out at you and give some context to some of the statements. I know your works, your tribulation, your poverty. What would be some of the tribulation? Not being able to trade, not being able to work. And then you're branded. You're disloyal, so nobody will have anything to do with you. And if it goes a step farther, then they start to persecute you. So when he says, I know your works, your tribulation, we're starting to get a feel for that. We know why they are poor. So when you get some of that background information, doesn't it make this come to life a little bit more? So when we're studying, it's always good to go back and dig into the where. Understand, the places, the cities, the historical setting, stuff like that. And it really does make the text come alive more. It gives it more color, gives it more meaning. Well, that's all I've got for today. Wednesday, we're going to be back in here. Everybody will come in here. And let's talk a little bit about the where of 2 Timothy. Okay? So we know that Paul's in prison and he's in Rome. So do a little research and see what that might have been like. All right. Thank you all.